Jessica Monroe stepped off the plane, exhausted from a long 10-hour flight. She had pictured warm hugs, laughter, and familiar faces waiting at the airport. Instead, her mother's cold gaze met her, and without a word of welcome, she handed Jessica a list of instructions. Shock knotted in her stomach. The anticipation of family love turned into an uneasy tension she couldn't shake. Guests and siblings might have been waiting at home, but it felt like she had entered a room where she didn't belong. That's when I realized I wasn't invited home. I was summoned. Jessica Monroe followed her mother's stiff instructions, stepping into the family home that once felt welcoming. Holiday decorations sparkled. Laughter echoed faintly, but the air carried unease. Her siblings exchanged awkward glances, subtle jabs disguised as jokes reminded her of old rivalries. Jessica, usually confident and composed, felt the weight of unspoken expectations pressing down. Past family dynamics, favoritism, control, and silent competitions resurfaced as she tried to navigate greetings, small talk, and polite smiles. She realized that appearances could deceive. The warmth of home was now a fragile mask over underlying tension. This section sets the emotional and situational stage, highlighting Jessica's internal struggle and the subtle red flags in her family interactions. Jessica Monroe froze for a moment, stunned by the reality unfolding in front of her. Barely off the plane, barely through the door, and her parents were already handing her instructions she was expected to babysit her younger cousins for the entire weekend. Her brother chuckled lightly, making jokes about how she always loved taking care of everyone, as if her life had always been a service to them. There was no discussion, no consideration, no asking if she wanted to help, just a quiet assumption that she would obey. The tension in the room was palpable. Jessica's chest tightened, her mind racing. She had flown across states expecting warmth, maybe even a little celebration, and instead found herself cornered into a role she had spent years performing without recognition. She glanced at her parents' calm, expectant faces and felt a mix of disbelief and simmering anger. Her internal voice questioned her reaction. Maybe they just needed help. Maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, Jessica knew this was more than a one-time request. It was a continuation of the same patterns that had defined her family for years. Jessica Monroe tried to keep her composure, but the moment escalated beyond her expectations. Her parents continued unpacking, laughing, and talking as if nothing was wrong, while her brother whispered jokes at her expense. She was expected to act cheerful, even as the younger cousins were practically dumped on her, toddling around, spilling drinks, asking questions non-stop. Every smile she offered was met with more helpful suggestions from her family, each one cutting deeper than the last. The room seemed to blur around her. She realized this wasn't about family togetherness or fun, it was manipulation. A power play that had been rehearsed for years. Her energy, once full of excitement and anticipation, drained away. She moved mechanically, responding to the children's needs, pretending nothing hurt, while her mind quietly catalogued every slight, every smirk, every joke at her expense. Inside, a storm brewed. Jessica's external calm masked an internal fire. Her silence was not submission. It was observation, calculation. She held herself upright, managing the chaos. But the truth of the moment hit her hard. I smiled, but something inside me shut down. Jessica Monroe took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. She knew reacting with anger or frustration would only give her family more control. Instead, she chose silence. Every word she didn't speak became a tool, every movement measured. Her parents continued unpacking, her brother joked, and the kids ran wild, but Jessica's mind was sharp, alert. She observed everything. The way her mother's eyes flicked when she gave instructions, the little smirks her brother hid behind laughter, the patterns in their behavior she had ignored before. She made mental notes, cataloguing each slight, each attempt to manipulate her, and carefully planned her response. Jessica knew timing was everything. Patience would be her secret weapon. Every laugh at her expense, every passing comment, was quietly recorded in her mind. She understood that control wasn't loud, it was calculated, subtle, and precise. Silence isn't weakness. It's preparation. Jessica Monroe finally spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, and measured no anger, no hesitation. The words she chose weren't loud, but they carried weight, authority, and clarity. I will help where I choose, not where I'm summoned, she said, her tone firm but controlled. Immediately, her brother's confident smirk faltered. He tried to joke, but the amusement died in his eyes. Her parents froze mid-motion, clearly unsure how to respond to a boundary they weren't expecting. For the first time, Jessica felt the subtle shift in energy around her. The room, once filled with casual dominance and assumptions of control, fell quiet. Every gaze turned toward her, not with mockery, but with the realization that she was no longer passively accepting orders. Her calm confidence radiated power without a single shout or confrontation. I said one sentence, and the room went quiet. The balance had begun to tilt, and Jessica felt the first spark of real authority and respect return to her. The moment I spoke, the shift was immediate. My family froze, the air thick with disbelief and unease. My brother's confident smirk faltered, replaced by a nervous twitch he couldn't hide. My parents exchanged glances, their carefully rehearsed holiday plans unraveling before their eyes. Suddenly, the trip they had planned with such certainty was at risk, and panic bubbled just beneath the surface. They tried to recover, using half-hearted jokes, forced laughter, and veiled threats to manipulate the situation, but I didn't flinch. Every attempt at guilt or emotional blackmail fell flat. The children, dumped on me without warning, seemed calmer than the adults around them. It was almost comical, watching the chaos unfold while I remained composed, a quiet force amidst their scrambling. Inside, I felt a surge of satisfaction. The power had finally tilted. I realized then that patience, observation, and calm strategy were stronger than any shouting or argument. For once, I wasn't the family helper, I was the one in control. And the room had no choice but to acknowledge it. I stayed calm, and they couldn't ignore it after the chaos settled. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day settle around me. I knew I didn't need to argue, yell, or deliver some dramatic speech to make my point. My silence, my composure, had already spoken louder than any confrontation could. I gathered my things, smiling gently, and let my family see that their manipulations no longer had power over me. Walking away on my own terms felt liberating. The tension I had carried, the embarrassment, the frustration, the unspoken demands dissolved with each step. For the first time, one chose myself, my boundaries, and my peace over pleasing others or meeting impossible expectations. I realized that respect, both given and earned, begins with how you treat yourself. The growth was undeniable. I had learned patience, observation, and the quiet power of strategy. Today wasn't just a lesson for them, it was a declaration of my own strength. I left with dignity intact, carrying the knowledge that self-respect can outshine every insult, every manipulation, and every attempt to control. For the first time, I chose myself. Family love is important, but it shouldn't come at the cost of your boundaries or self-respect. Saying no doesn't make you selfish, it makes you strong. Remember, helping willingly is different from being taken for granted. What would you have done in my place? Did this story shock you? Hit like if it did. Subscribe now for more dramatic revenge and betrayal stories. And comment below, what would you do if you were in Jessica's place? We want to hear your story.